The sound of the doorbell reached him through the shut entrance, and Lucius straightened the collar of his jacket one last time. Appearances were important, as was knowledge, but people like the ones he was about to visit wouldn't even let him enter their home if he messed up the first impression. That was something he had learned the hard way. He let his eyes fall shut for another moment and reorganized his thoughts. One mother, one daughter. The perfect target for them. Lucius felt a shiver running down his left arm. He could feel traces of the presence even out here, on the porch. How long had it been in there? Days? Weeks? He shook his head, pressed the doorbell again, tried to put up a smile, then stopped himself the next moment. No. Looking pleased was definitely not what the mother would like to see in her current situation. If he could already feel this being out here, she was probably in hell right now. The last thing she'd need was someone looking smug, trying to get into her home. He wouldn't be able to do much without the mother's trust. The heavy duffel bag slung around his shoulder scraped against the side of his jacket, and for a moment Lucius could hear a few of his tools bumping into each other. Wood and metal, cloth and paper. He was prepared for the worst, even if he hoped never to encounter it again. The scars those things could leave were bad enough. He didn't wish it upon anyone. Especially not those two in there. He had found out quite a bit about what was going on already. People nowadays tend to spread their misery around, and Lucius had talked to some who were connected to the mother, Miranda. They had come in contact with some kind of cursed object 2 weeks back, and since then, her daughter had started to change. Little things at first, like spacing out randomly, having bursts of fever that seemed to disappear as quickly as they came up. Then, it got worse. A sick complexion, sudden outbursts of anger, talking in tongues. The hospital sent them away since the symptoms disappeared whenever the girl came into contact with a doctor. Was that a sign of her condition improving? No. Lucius knew better. Whatever was inside that girl right now was playing its games. It didn't want to make a public spectacle out of it, at least not now. The first thing those beings liked to do was play with the immediate family. Torture them, break them, make them give up on their own. Only then would this thing start spreading its influence around, causing untold misery and panic. He had seen how bad it could get in a small rural town once. Dozens of people dead, churches and ancestral shrines desecrated, a whole community plunged into hell. And all of that just because no one had noticed in time and done something about it. He wouldn't let that happen again, even if he had to use force. He rang the doorbell for a third time and listened for the sound of approaching footsteps. At least for now, he shouldn't look like he was in a hurry. The last thing the mother needed right now was somebody piling on extra stress. Finally, he could hear someone descending the old rickety stairs and coming toward the front entrance. He straightened his collar again, put on his most friendly smile, then put the duffel bag down by his foot. The person inside the house reached the door, and Lucius felt someone looking at him through the peephole. He didn't move, just smiled, and waited for her to size him up. His youthful appearance definitely helped in situations such as this. People normally didn't feel threatened by him, which suited him just fine. The gaze on him wandered down from his face, and he took a small step back to get fully into view. He wasn't here to harm her, but he couldn't say that right now. She'd never opened the door for him then. So, he smiled and waited, giving the person on the other side of the entrance enough time to come to a decision on their own. Lucius could feel the fear and tension emanating from the house. This job might get messy, his instincts warned. He took a deep breath, then finally heard the lock of the door turning before a small gap appeared from which someone stared out at him. The small chain keeping the door secured wouldn't stop anyone. His instincts piped up again.
"We're not buying anything,"
a voice, tired and tense, informed him, and Lucius showed an even bigger smile.
"I'm not here to sell you anything,"
he replied, then let the grin vanish without a trace.
"And I don't want any money either. Nor am I here to promote myself. It's about your daughter, Amber."
The eye behind the gap narrowed as he said the name. Lucius took a step forward and put the tip of his shoe close to the door. If worst came to worst, he might need to force his way inside. Even if he didn't want to do it, if it was to save some lives, he was ready to go to almost any length.
"Look, I know your daughter's in danger. I also have a pretty good idea of what has happened. Would you give me just 5 minutes of your time? I promise, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just 5 minutes. Please."
Lucius could feel the woman's apprehension. She was still staring at him, eyeing him up and down. He could totally understand her throwing the door shut and calling the police with the amount of stress she was under. But right now, he hoped she would make the right choice.
5 minutes,
she replied, and Lucius took a deep breath as he watched the door close back up, then heard the chain being pulled. Cool air hit him as the entrance finally opened inward, and Lucius saw the woman fully for the first time. He could see the dark bags under her puffy red eyes, the ruffled hair, and even noticed the shaking of her fingers. Her complexion didn't look good either, nor did the slight twitch he saw every time she took a breath. This woman was in hell right now. She could see the life she had built up crumbling, and the source was her own daughter. Lucius couldn't even pretend to know what she was going through right now. So he gave her a nod, picked up the duffel bag, and took a step forward. The woman was hiding her hand from him, but Lucius could already imagine what she had there. By the way she was holding her arm, he guessed either pepper spray or maybe one of those tasers. Whatever it was, he didn't mind. Inviting strangers into your own home was stressful at the best of times, so her taking precautions was understandable. He stepped past her, waited for her to close the door again, then point him in the direction where he should move. She led him into the living room, made him sit on the couch while she took a chair, then looked at him expectantly. Lucius couldn't help but frown. The atmosphere in here was bad. He could feel this cold dread spreading out from somewhere above, smelled the stench of vomit and rot in the air, and couldn't help but notice the state of the place right now. Maybe he had gotten here too late? No, there was still time. For starters, the woman in front of him was still alive. Lucius let go of his duffel bag and took a deep breath.
"First off, I'm only here to help. There's something wrong with your daughter, right?"
He could see the woman nod ever so slightly.
I assume she started to change a week ago. Maybe a few days longer?
Again, a slight nod.
She probably came into contact with something around that time. Maybe an object somewhere that just felt off.
Lucius could see the woman staring at him blankly now. She didn't look convinced at all. He needed to draw her in, and quickly.
I'm guessing it started with nightmares. But not normal ones, more like night terrors, right?
The gaze on him grew sharp.
Screaming that someone was in her room, maybe? Sudden bouts of crying, an inability to sleep, fever and headaches. Slowly, your daughter started avoiding direct sunlight, and she probably stopped eating around that time as well.
Lucius could see the doubts in the woman's eyes slowly disappearing.
But it got better when you took her to see someone, right? Only to get worse whenever you returned home. Did you try to capture video of those instances?
The woman nodded and finally pulled her hand from behind her back. It was a taser she was holding onto. Lucius took her, showing him that as a sign of at least a tiny bit of trust.
I assume all you got was videos of your daughter getting up and destroying the camera, right?
He could see her swallowing hard.
As she started coming into your room at night, staring at you while standing next to your bed?
A nod, then a tear.
There's something in your daughter right now. Something malevolent.
The woman didn't look shocked at all. How much did she know?
It's gotten in there and has started taking over. I'm sure you know what I mean, right? Do you even recognize her anymore?
A flash of pain appeared on the woman's face. More tears were running down her cheek.
Are you like a priest? Because I already called one and he's in talks with the bishop.
Lucius just shook his head.
I'm not affiliated with any church, Miranda. And neither are those things, by the way. They're older than any religion practiced right now, anyway.
The woman's eyes darkened at his words.
But the priest told me.
He cut her off right there. They didn't have time for long-winded explanations, and the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs made the nape of his neck tingle. It felt like a predator was approaching, and Lucius turned his whole body to face the new arrival.
You don't need a religion or a god. You only need some kind of faith,
he whispered, then drew in a sharp breath as the young girl appeared in the doorway of the living room. She was looking completely normal, and was rubbing her eyes as if she had just woken up. But Lucius could feel it. This dark aura she was exuding almost made him choke. Whatever was possessing her right now was immensely dangerous, and it had come down here to scope him out. This house already belonged to it. It wanted to show, and he had come in as an unwelcome intruder.
Amber,
the woman next to him said, sounding almost happy. But he could hear the tension in her voice.
This nice man has come to visit us. He's an old friend of mine. What do we say to guests?
Lucius watched the child's reaction. Behind the small hand still rubbing the eyes, he could see a gaze peering out at him that had nothing human to it. He could feel the hatred permeating the air, but the voice that came out of the girl sounded just like a tired child.
Hello, mister. Nice to meet you.
Lucius smiled brightly, then reached into his pocket. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the mother growing stiff, so he showed her what he held in his palm. A coin, an old silver one, dirty and scratched.
You must be Amber, right?
He could see the child lowering her hands and her eyes before she nodded in response. The thing in her didn't recognize him. Lucius let out a soft sigh, then rose from the couch and took a step toward the child. The mother was still watching him like a hawk. Even with this thing inside, all she saw was her daughter, after all.
I've brought you something,
Lucius said, and with a big smile on his face, extended his hand and softly tossed the coin toward the child. He could see a glow in the eyes as they looked at the small metal disc, the leg stumbling as it tried to move out of the way, then heard the hiss as the coin touched the child's arm and got stuck. A scream filled the room as the girl staggered backwards. It didn't sound childlike at all. Lucius felt someone shoving him out of the way as the woman rushed forward. She grabbed hold of her daughter, who still had her mouth open, and the coin finally fell off the girl's skin, hitting the floor as the child collapsed in her mother's embrace.
What did you just do?
The woman almost screamed at him, her eyes wide in shock. Lucius walked over to her, brushed the hair out of the girl's forehead, then showed her the dark purple veins bulging there.
Oh, it's just a stopgag. This thing inside her will wake up in a few minutes, and it will be angry.
He could see the fear in her eyes as she stared at him, and Lucius gave her a nod.
You can touch the coin. It won't hurt you. But the one who possesses your daughter isn't as lucky. It won't work a second time, though, so we definitely need to hurry.
The woman still looked down at her girl's unconscious body, then lifted her up.
I hope you know what you're doing.
He heard Miranda say, and gave her a quick nod.
Of course. I wouldn't have come here if I didn't. Bring her to her bed.
The woman carried her daughter toward the stairs, and Lucius quickly grabbed his duffel bag, then followed her. He could smell that rotten stench getting worse the moment they started ascending the steps toward the upper floor, and the air around them seemed to grow even heavier. The woman had done everything correctly since her daughter had been possessed, from making sure she wasn't taken out of the house to even informing the priest. He could have helped her as well. The only problem with the church was the long delay due to its bureaucracy. And judging by what he was seeing right now, the exorcists wouldn't have made it in time. The woman reached the upper floor with her daughter, and Lucius could feel an ominous breeze blowing right into his face. He could see the room the girl was sleeping in already. Its atmosphere was unmistakable. In his eyes, it looked like an infected wound. Lucius followed the mother and child, watched as the door of the girl's room was pushed open, then braced himself as a wave of what felt like freezing, stinking air blew right at him. It had spent days in here, and he could clearly see all the traces it had already left behind. The floor looked wet like a swamp. There seemed to be things beneath the wallpaper crawling around, and the bulb in the middle of the room felt like it was giving up this sickly, dirty light. It all was only visible to him, he knew, and today he was glad that normal people didn't share his vision. The woman put her child on the bed, and Lucius dropped the duffel bag, then opened it.
Please remember, everything I'm about to do, I do to save your daughter. I will not hurt her, but the thing inside of her will scream for help. If at any point you are uncomfortable, please, just step outside. This thing is dangerous enough on its own. I don't need anyone interfering.
He could see the confusion in the woman's face and gave her a soft smile as he rummaged through the duffel bag. At least the woman wasn't carrying her taser around anymore. Lucius pulled out an amulet, one with a hole in its middle, then quickly crossed the room and tore open the curtains. Light streamed into the room and banished the swamp that seemed to cover the floor. It still wasn't too late, Lucius told himself. This thing hadn't manifested its world here completely. The girl could still be saved. But they had to be quick. He raised the amulet and caught the sun, channeling it through the hole in its center and toward the form lying on the bed. Lucius could see the mother jumping back as the child started shaking. The eyelids fluttered, but all that could be seen was the pure white of the eyes.
Reveal yourself,
he commanded, and looked on as all the color drained from the girl's face and body. Her skin didn't turn pure white, but suddenly sickly grey. Lucius looked at the mother, who had raised her hands to her mouth as she stumbled back.
What is that?
Her voice was high-pitched and shrill, and Lucius could see the shock so clearly on her face.
That's the thing inside your daughter. It's how far it has already corrupted her spirit.
The girl was still shaking, and now white foam started appearing between her lips. It looked like she was having a seizure.
What is your name?
Lucius demanded, and suddenly the tremors got worse. He could feel the air inside the room moving, the things behind the wallpaper stopping, and then heard the whole bed starting to shake. Lucius could see the little girl's mouth opening, the tongue darting out and disappearing back in the darkness. gurgling sound came out of the child.
What's happening? Is this an earthquake?
The mother's voice suddenly cut through the growling noise, drawing his attention away for only a split second. But it was enough. Lucius felt the evil stare burning his skin the moment he looked at the mother, and he knew he had messed up. The coin had sedated it, but using that other amulet had pretty much broken that tranquility. At the moment his concentration had wavered, this thing had regained control. And now he would see what it was capable of. The thing rolled off the bed towards its mother, and Lucius dropped the amulet. This monster would stay out of the sun from now on, and without the light, it was nothing more than an old trinket. He heard the thing hitting the floorboards, looked at the mother still standing there, her hand covering her mouth.
Run!
Lucius screamed, but the woman didn't even hear him. He ran toward her, jumped onto the bed, leapt off it, and took Miranda off her feet. They tumbled over the floorboards that already looked like a swamp again, him holding her tightly while shooting a glance back toward the bed. Beneath it, where the light didn't reach, he could see two glowing eyes staring out at him. Lucius heard the monster groaning as they stopped sliding and rolling, so he pushed himself off the ground and got in between this monster and the woman. The demon was staring at him still, raising one hand, and almost immediately he felt this pain inside his chest. It felt like an invisible hand was reaching into him to squeeze his heart. A groan escaped him as his vision got blurry. The thing was laughing, cackling down there, and its voice began to sound strange. Lucius reached into another pocket. He was prepared for anything. His fingertips brushed against cold metal that suddenly seemed to heat up. Right now, he needed to get this thing back under control before it could stop his heart. The pain was getting worse and worse, but he knew that he still had time. This thing in front of him wasn't nearly as powerful as it liked to pretend to be. He grabbed the item in his pocket fully and got ready to pull it out, when suddenly a noise in his back stopped him. A breath, long and drawn out, reached his ears and made the nape of his neck tingle. Something cold and pointy touched his skin right below his head. Lucius wanted to scream as he saw the mother out of the corner of his eye, with the taser in hand, pressing it right against his neck. The electricity surged through him as her finger found the button. All the color drained from the world as every muscle in his body tensed up at the same time. Air went out of his lungs. The trinket in his pocket slipped from his fingers. He collapsed to the ground, the sound and pain of the electricity still pushing away everything else and turning the world around him black. Lucius came to again with a groan as the cold, hard stone he was lying on started vibrating softly. He coughed, then rolled over and immediately felt the strain in his shoulder as he realized that his wrists were bound behind his back. The pain was slowly subsiding, but his mind still felt completely jumbled up. What had happened? Why? The woman had tased him. He had thought she had left the weapon downstairs.
That's what you get for being careless.
He thought back on her reactions from the moment she had opened the door to her interrupting his ritual. Had it all been planned? Whatever the case, the mother was definitely in on it. Another groan escaped him as he got his knees under his body, then slowly rose up. There was this sickening stench in the air, sweet yet rotten. He turned his head, blinked in the low light, then finally found the source. 3 dead bodies were lying close by at the other wall. At least 2 of those were priests. Lucius closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. He hadn't been the first one after all. Mumbling a curse, he scooted back until he touched another wall. There was hardly any light coming in through the windows, but what he could see of this basement soured his mood even further. Deep scratches marked the stone of the floor. Grooves that looked like they had been filled with blood once. So, had the mother summoned the demon into her daughter? In that case, he needed to make sure the child would survive. She was the only innocent one here. Lucius started rolling his shoulders and felt the plastic strap cutting into his skin. She had bound his wrists with one of those zip ties. He started moving his arms slowly over the wall until he found something sticking out, then began dragging the plastic strap across that spot. There was no need to panic. The demon was somewhere upstairs, and the woman obviously had no idea what she was doing when it came to abducting people. Leaving him down here on his own had been a grave mistake. Lucius tensed up his shoulders while he worked at the zip tie and felt the pain of the strap scraping over the flesh on his wrists, but he easily ignored it. He had survived worse. If the mother had any idea what being possessed did to people, she wouldn't have locked the demon into her daughter either. Lucius felt the anger inside rising, bit his lip, and forced himself to calm down again. The zip ties snagged on whatever was jutting out, and he began putting pressure on the plastic. Slowly, it started to stretch, then rip apart. The pain in his wrists was getting worse. He could feel blood running down his fingers. Just a bit more, he told himself. Another few seconds. He strained his shoulders and put as much weight onto his wrists as he could, then suddenly felt the plastic snap. A groan almost escaped him, but he bit his lip again, pulled his hands in front of his body, and looked at the damage. The skin on his wrists was badly cut, but he could still feel and move every single finger.
Good enough.
Lucius mumbled with a smile. He got up to his feet and started looking around the room in earnest. 2 dead bodies were lying in the corner. The symbol on the floor was crusted over, and there was a bunch of old stuff in boxes beneath the stairs leading up to the closed door of the first floor. Among them he could see a fishing rod. His jacket was gone, and his pockets felt empty, but he didn't care about that right now. He needed to come up with a distraction. Something to make the demon upstairs panic. Lucius smiled and got to work. Now, with the corpse in the center of the symbol and only a few drops of fresh blood in the grooves, he felt ready. This ritual. It wasn't one of the ones he knew, but it looked familiar enough for him to at least attempt it. While he had been preparing, he had noticed a few things he had missed at first. The demon inside the girl wasn't old or strong enough to jump into a human from a cursed object. He should have known. Someone had forced this thing in with this ritual. Now, normally one would use a living being as the conduit in the center and fresh blood to draw in the evil spirit. But right now, he needed the ritual to fail. If it did work, he would find himself locked up down here with a second demon inside the house. He bristled at the thought, stepped back, and put his hands close to the grooves on the floor. Lucius mumbled some words in an ancient language, closed his eyes, and concentrated. He could feel the response of the symbol almost immediately. The ritual was beginning, but he also felt something going wrong. A smile appeared on his lips as he opened his eyes and quickly scooted back. Dark flames were flickering in the grooves of the symbol, racing up and down, then suddenly toward the corpse in the center. Whatever beings were listening, this would definitely pissed him off. He could see the corpse shaking, trembling, and felt a sudden gust of wind blowing through the basement, rattling the house's foundation. Above, someone was screaming. Not in fear, but in anger. The demon felt the ritual, he knew. He heard footsteps racing toward this place and pressed himself against the wall as an eerie howl filled the basement. Black flames were racing through the corpse on the floor, splitting and charring the dead skin. The ritual was failing. going out of control. Normally, someone would try to stop it, banishing whatever was attempting to enter the corpse back from where it had come. But not today. Lucius pressed his back against the wall as someone above turned the key in the lock of the basement door. It wasn't the demon, but the mother. He knew it without having to look up. The woman ripped open the door, jumped down the stairs, then suddenly screamed. Lucius had bound fishing wire just behind the entrance. Her leg had gotten caught, and with loud thuds he heard the woman falling down the rickety steps before she came to stop at the foot of the stairs. He was above her before she could get up, grabbed her by the collar, then dragged her onto the symbol. Black flames shot up her skin. The being summoned was raging, and Lucius jumped back in a hurry. It would destroy the whole building in its blind fury, and was already starting with the woman he had forced into its grasp. There was nothing else for him to do here. He needed to take care of the real problem. Lucius ran up the stairs as the screams below got louder and louder. There was the living room. He recognized the chair and couch they had sat on, and felt a sudden tremor running through the whole house. Time was of the essence now. He continued sprinting, rounded the corner, then jumped up the stairs leading to the upper floor. The thing inside the girl would be in its room. Lucius reached the top of the stairs, then felt a smile creeping onto his face. His duffel bag was just outside the door to the girl's room. He ran, didn't slow down, but grabbed it mid-sprint, pushed out his shoulder, and jumped at the door, throwing it back with an ear-numbing bang. The demon was on the ceiling, cowering in the corner. He could feel the ritual down there going wrong, the tendrils reaching up the house, looking for anything else to destroy. If there was one thing those demons feared, then it was another, older demon coming after them. A single eye stared down at him, this time in pure terror instead of hate. Lucius pushed one hand into the duffel bag, pulled out something that looked like a misshapen sickle, rusty with the edge snapped off.
I can send you far away,
he promised, and for the first time the thing looked at him with something akin to hope. It was completely terrified. The floor beneath him rumbled, and the smell of burning sulfur filled the air. Lucius watched as the thing suddenly dropped down from the corner of the ceiling, landed on the floor, and put his instrument on the girl's forehead. There was no struggle, no fight. Never before had he gotten through this quickly, and he felt the monster leaving the body as soon as he could finish the incantation. The whole house shook as the girl suddenly went limp, and he had to catch her to keep her from hurting herself. Lucius looked back at the open door of the room. Black flames were visible in the hallway already. The whole building would soon be devoured. He cursed, grabbed hold of the duffel bag, and threw it at the window. Glass burst before he heard the heavy bag hit the roof of the porch, then roll off and fall to the floor. He didn't give himself any more time to think. Lucius held the girl tight, tucked in his own head, ran, then jumped and felt gravity pulling him down. He pressed the girl to his chest, hit the small roof of the porch, rolled off, then crashed to the ground with his back first. The house was aflame in his vision. Still struggling to get up, he pulled the girl away from the trembling building. Glass was bursting from the windows, showering the whole area. Lights flickered and struts groaned. He could hear the distorted cries coming from the basement. This thing would only stop once the house collapsed in on itself, destroying the symbol carved into the foundation. Lucius stumbled, then almost fell over. The girl in his grasp was moving. He let go of her, put her down, then fell to his knees right next to her. Tears were swimming in her eyes. The girl was opening her mouth.
Give him back.
She mumbled, and Lucius felt his blood freeze.
I need him. Give him back.
He got back to his feet. His whole body hurt. He felt like he had been hit by a car. Blood was dripping from a cut in his cheek and his wrists. But the girl didn't even look at him. She stretched out her hands toward the house that was crumbling, the black flames shooting upward from the basement to the attic.
Give him back.
He heard her whisper. Lucius felt sick to his stomach. She wasn't calling out for her mom or her dad. She wanted the demon back. He turned away. Sirens were coming toward them, and he couldn't stay here any longer. Nothing about this job had made sense, and now he just felt empty. If he stayed here any longer, he knew what he was bound to do. One last time he looked at the girl. Tears were running down her face, while her hands grasped the empty air in front of her. Sooner or later, they would meet again, his instincts told him. He would take care of her then, but not tonight. He didn't even want to think about it. Tonight, he only wanted to run away.